probably at the point of just starting to master our new morning routine in terms of commuting. We're commuting from our homes to our home offices, to our dining room tables, to our kitchen counters in order to begin our school and work experiences. It's a little bit disruptive, it's a little bit strange when people are now trying to figure out how to manage and juggle virtual meetings, virtual presentations, virtual classroom experiences. And if you are like me, you're trying to make all of that work within just over 900 square feet. My husband, who is my coworker during the daytime, has one volume when he speaks, and that is stage ready from his diagram at all times. Like it literally doesn't get any quieter than that, no matter if it's a casual conversation, it's a regular conversation. That is his volume when he speaks. So when I am working, I find myself having to pick up a laptop, two cell phones, a ring light, a notepad, and trying to relocate myself so I can conduct my work so that I am not disrupting his work. If we had children in this mix, oh my goodness, I don't know how we would manage. And for people that do have kids that are trying to do virtual classrooms and you're virtual teaching and you're homeschooling and new into that while trying to run a business, do your job, and manage your household, my hat is off to you. But in the midst of trying to juggle virtual algebra, virtual history, what we have learned are two critical things. One is that school is a center point of our community in a way that we have never really thought about it and appreciated more now that we don't have it to go to. And then two, we have also seen significant gaps in our childcare infrastructure. What we know is that the way we do childcare right now, it is failing working families. I think we knew those things before, but what we've seen in the pandemic, it exacerbated how vulnerable those structures are, those services are. So we're now in the midst of trying to do school, do childcare, managing clients, colleagues. You see kids in the background. It's the sweetest thing, but it is all very, very complicated. Now, moving forward, there is going to be some sort of a new normal. What that is and how it's defined is still to be determined. However, I ask you this question: who gets to decide what that new normal is? Who gets to be a part of those conversations? And whose ideas and input are going to be included in that decision-making process? We need to have critical conversations about reimagining workplaces, schools, childcare, youth sports, parks, play spaces, and the like. Who says that you should not be at the table when those important conversations are happening, because those outcomes will direct impact you effectively for sure. Oftentimes, it seems like government tends to do their work in a vacuum without any real consideration about how it impacts people. But I am here to tell you that we have to turn that thinking on its head. It is time to galvanize our power that we, the people, have to drive the way that government works for us. Former Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm was very notably saying, if you don't have a seat at the table, then bring a folding chair. I want to teach you how to bring your folding chair to your local government's table. Why local government, you ask? I say that because all politics is local, and the local level is where you have the ability to make the most direct impact on your quality of life. It's a little cliche, but absolutely, when the water doesn't come on, trash isn't picked up, your lights don't come on, you don't call 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue for those services. It is the person that you probably walked past in the grocery store or the gas station who has the ability to have an impact on those decisions and on those services. So while we see that elected officials are there to help us, we don't always know how it is to pull those levers, make sure that they're helping us properly. But today, we're going to learn how to bring your folding chair to those conversations when it's time to be involved, time to bring community into that decision-making process. I am Patrice Marshall McKenzie, educator and a community advocate from Pasadena, California. For the last 15 years, I have spent my professional experience working in local and state government in the areas of policy development, community engagement, issue advocacy, community organizing, and doing intergovernmental relations. What does that mean? So day to day, I write concept papers that become policy. I write policy statements that get voted on by elected officials. And when I'm not doing that, I am attending a lot of community meetings and events. Those things are happening virtually now, but in the before COVID time, I could easily go to 3 to 4 events per week. So in that time of talking with friends, neighbors, business owners, community members, stakeholders, elected officials, even sometimes people that are not always those that agree with you, you learn lots of things about what's important to them, where their priorities are, and how to use that information as currency to help make better policy. I have been successful by being able to keep my ear to the ground and make sure that I'm using that information to inform my work and to guide good policy decision making. But most important, I have to nurture and manage relationships, because in politics, like any other organization or any other profession, people will work with you when they know you, when they like you, and when they trust you. So I am here to show you how to improve your quality of life by building those relationships with your elected leaders so that you can make change at the local level. Why do we focus on local? Because if we are concerned about the quality of our neighborhoods, having safe parks and play spaces, having good quality grocery stores that are not astronomically expensive, being able to make sure that you can do things simply like getting a business license, you have to be able to utilize the resources that are available at your local government, because all of those things are controlled right in your own backyard. We spend a lot of time focusing on what happens in Washington, D.C., because the news drives that Washington, D.C. is the center of power and where decisions happen. But it's really important to remember that even though we see what happens in DC, what happens in Congress on the news every day, they don't have a lot of direct impact on your day-to-day quality of life. The only real service that Congress controls that impacts us daily is the Postal Service. Now, it's a vital service. Do not get me wrong. And I think we're not talking about how vital it is. And we've seen that during the pandemic, how essential the Postal Service has become, because they are delivering our Amazon needs, our mail, our ballots, our packages, even prescription medication. And any delay in that could have really life-altering implications on people who are waiting for those services. However, I do want us to remember that while we are focused on local, there are 3 things that you should do that will help you to learn how to harness your people power, learn how to drive change in your community, and learn how to amplify the voices of others in the process. And that's going to happen in 3 simple steps. The first one is you're going to learn how to articulate and communicate your issue or area of concern. The second thing is you're going to identify who to contact at the right level of government so that you can use the best communication tool to share what your concerns are. And 3, you're going to advocate for the change that you want to be able to see. Now, step 1 is really simple. It really requires you just to be able to identify your issue, articulate it. You could be thinking about what keeps you awake at night, what it is that could make your life better, what it is that could improve systems or processes, or what it is you're just mad about and you want to figure out how to change it. So once you learn why you're mad, you then have to figure out how do you talk, who do you talk to, and what do you tell them? I'll tell you a quick story about a way that I got mad and went and did something about it. My husband and I used to live in a community that had a lot of apartment buildings. It was a pretty densely populated neighborhood. And we learned by way of a flyer in our mailbox that there was a plan to build 850 condos across the street from our already very densely crowded neighborhood. And in LA, rent is high. People have multiple roommates. So if you figure that's 800 units, you're talking about 2,000 people, 1,400 cars, and 600 dogs coming to our neighborhood. That is a nightmare waiting to happen. When we got to the meeting, we realized that there had already been significant planning on this project because they had renderings, they had blueprints, they had plans already ready to go. But our friends and neighbors got together and we shared the impact that a development of this size would have on our quality of life in terms of traffic, noise, additional pollution, and just really, really making our neighborhood lose its character and its quality. So we also learned that before you ever see a shovel go in the ground, that there are 2 to 3 years of work that's happened before you see people actually working. Now, we gave our concerns and we shared our grievances to the Planning Commission, which then ultimately rolled it up to council, and then they voted on it when they did the approval of the project. And what happened was this: we got them to reduce the scope of the project from 850 units down to 500 units. So while we weren't able to stop the development, the reduction in scope by almost 50% was certainly considered a significant win for our community. So you too can fight City Hall and sometimes even win. Step two, you have to, once you identify your ask, you have to figure out the right way to communicate with that branch of government. So if you are frustrated by being 11 months, almost a year into virtual learning and distance learning, you don't take that to Washington, D.C. as a concern. That concern goes to your school board. If you're frustrated about DMV and being able to get your license renewed, having a waiting list of 6 months to get an appointment for getting your license renewed, that is a state agency. So you have to go to your state legislature for help with those kinds of DMV issues. The state also controls things like licensing for businesses. So if you get a real estate license, a law license, a medical license, et cetera, those licenses are issued and managed at the state level. If you're worried about child welfare services and health and human services and those kinds of services, even public hospitals and county hospitals, your county level of government is where those decisions are made. So aligning your concern to the right level of government is kind of the right place to start in terms of sharing what it is that you're frustrated about today. So once you've done that, there are multitudes of ways to be able to communicate with your elected leaders. They take phone calls, emails, still handwritten letters come in and they read those and they respond to those, postcards or other sort of written communication. Social media is also a huge way that people are communicating with their elected leaders and really getting some pretty rapid response and robust dialogue and opportunities to really have direct impact. Know that if you don't get an immediate response, someone is reading those responses, someone is cataloging those concerns, and while they may not respond to you in the mode that you communicated to them, you will see your elected leader communicate back to you, be it in their email newsletter, if they're doing live chats on social media, if they're doing interviews on the local news, if they're speaking and sending out communication to their mailing list. So those concerns are being addressed and then they're being forwarded back to their communities. Step three, now that you have shared your idea, communicated it with the right level of government, it's time to start putting some action together to really start driving that change that you want to be able to see. Advocacy is defined as the act or process of supporting a cause or a proposal. Sometimes when you need to amplify your voice, you got to bring some friends with you. Typically, if you have a concern or a problem, there's someone else that feels that same way. So once you find your people and you find your crew that are sharing that concern, when you all get together and you all share a message, if you're all sending an email about the water quality, if you've got brown water coming out of your pipes, if everybody's emailing about the fact that trash is not being picked up on time, if everybody is emailing about the fact that there are potholes in your street that are causing you to get flat tires, then the volume of those conversations and those concerns being amplified by multiple people are going to get your issue to have a little bit more attention than if it's just you alone. And know that those people are out there and you can find them pretty easily. And sometimes there may be a situation where people that you might consider an enemy or in opposition to where you normally are, they may have an issue that aligns with you. It's okay to coordinate with people that don't always align with you if, in fact, there's some alignment on the policy. Because I have always learned that you don't always have permanent friends or permanent enemies. You've got permanent interests. So when the interest aligns, figure out how to move it forward for you to get the win that you want to be able to have for your community. Also know that you can build that base through groups like your neighborhood associations, block clubs, sometimes these local social media groups that are concerned around neighborhoods or areas or cities. There's a lot of way to be able to identify with like-minded people. So we've gone through our 3 steps. Once you've got your people in place, it's time to show up. Sometimes showing up looks like being on Zoom. Sometimes showing up is sending mass mail. Sometimes it's a letter writing campaign. But know that the volume of your effort that's collectivized will get eyes on the issue. The other way that you can show up is to follow what's happening on the current agenda. Every agenda for a government meeting has some time for public comment. During public comment, you can speak on anything that's not on the agenda. So feel free to raise your concern, tell them why you're mad. When you're giving public comment, you would typically have 2 to 3 minutes to share what it is you want to share, ask what you want to ask. And there's an opportunity sometimes during that public comment that your issue can be agendized for a future meeting, which will then give the body an opportunity to have a more robust discussion about how it is it can support you in the future. What I do want you to remember and to focus on is that you can go out and organize and actually really create change in your community. All it takes is one person and one step to be able to start moving this process forward. But I do want you to remember that change is incremental. So we're going to manage our expectations and not expect that through our one email, our one social media post, and our one phone call that we're going to see the result we wanted to see. Just to reiterate that, Coretta Scott King has always said that struggle is a never-ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and you win it in every generation. Just want to give you that context that change is incremental, change comes in phases, change comes in steps, but because it's not the full result that you want to be able to see, doesn't mean that you have not won. So keep that in mind, keep showing up, keep raising your voice, keep bringing more people into the process, keep going to the ballot box, and you will then start to see that your superpowers to become change agents are going to strengthen. And while we're sharpening those superpowers, elected officials, they have superpowers too, but we have the power to drive how they use them. And in that process, I want you to remember that they are also people just like us. They just happen to be in a little bit of a role that requires them to show up differently. But we are the people that have power, and we're the ones who drive their agenda, we drive their priorities, and we have to let them know what it is that we expect from them, how we want them to serve us, how we want them to lead us, and how we want them to act on our behalf, because that is their role. Our role is to be thought partners in that work of giving them input, giving them feedback, and giving them that information to help them make good decisions. All of us have the tools that we need to make sure that we are removing the barriers between you, your community, and local government. So once you get ready, bring your folding table with you, bring your folding chair with you, articulate your problem, tell your leaders what it is that you want, and then go out and advocate for change. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at PatriceMO8. Visit my website at patricemarshallmckenzie.com. And if you will, I ask you to share a picture of yourself exercising your superpower. Tag me in so I can keep up with you and follow your progress. And also remember that what I have learned over the years is that my superpower for creating change is to make sure that I am leading with passion, with persuasion, and with persistence. And sometimes with a small, small dose of patience on the side. Thank you.